All right, let's talk about something that's happening inside you right now, trillions of times a second. It's this constant, energy-burning fight that, honestly, is the only reason you're alive. We're diving into a core biological process called active transport.
So think about it for a second. The natural way of things, a basic law of physics, is for everything to spread out to find a nice, even balance. But every single cell in your body is doing the exact opposite. It's fighting that law on purpose, creating total imbalance just to stay alive. So the big question is, how in the world do they pull that off every single second of every day?
Well, the whole problem boils down to concentration. A lot of the time, your cells need more of a certain substance on the inside than they can find on the outside. Or maybe they need to kick out some waste even when the area outside is already crowded with it. This means they have to force things to move from a place where there isn't much to a place where there's already a ton. They're literally pushing things against the natural flow.
And that's where this analogy really hits home. Just letting things spread out, that's easy. That's passive. It's just like water flowing downhill, right? It takes zero energy. But trying to force molecules to pack together where they're already crowded? Yeah, that's like trying to pump water uphill. It's tough, and it's absolutely going to require some serious energy.
Okay, so that brings us to the textbook definition. Active transport is just the official name for this whole process, moving molecules across a cell membrane from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. And the most important part of that definition? It requires energy. The cell has to pay a price for this uphill fight, and it pays with a special energy molecule called ATP.
And if you look at this comparison, it makes it super clear. Passive transport, no energy needed. It just goes downhill from high to low until everything's balanced out. Active transport is the complete opposite. It costs energy, it goes uphill from low to high, and its entire purpose is to create an imbalance. And believe it or not, that imbalance, well, that's pretty much the secret to life itself.
So, if the cell is constantly in this uphill battle, what are its tools? What's the machinery it uses to get the job done? Well, let's meet the VIPs of the cellular world, the little engines that do all the heavy lifting. We're talking about ion pumps.
And in the world of ion pumps, there is one undisputed rock star, the sodium-potassium pump. Seriously, this thing is working in pretty much every single cell in your body right now. It's the perfect poster child for active transport.
Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how it works, I've got a great analogy for you. Just picture a revolving door at a busy store. It takes a little push, some energy, to make it turn. And it's designed to let some people, let's call them sodium, out of the store, while letting a different group, potassium, in. And the key is, it never lets those two crowds mix. It keeps them separate and, you guessed it, imbalanced.
All right, so let's walk through how this revolving door actually spins. First, the pump opens up to the inside of the cell, and 3 sodium ions hop on. Step 2, a little burst of energy from ATP makes the pump completely change its shape. Now it's open to the outside, and it kicks those 3 sodium ions out. Step 4, in this new shape, it's now perfectly designed to grab 2 potassium ions from outside the cell. Once they're on board, the pump snaps back to its original shape, releasing the potassium on the inside, and just like that, it's ready to go all over again.
And here's where it gets kind of mind-blowing. The sheer scale of this is just, wow. That whole cycle we just talked about, grab, flip, release, grab, flip, release, that isn't just happening once in a while. It's happening millions of times, every single second, in countless cells all over your body. It's this relentless, non-stop, high-speed operation that is always on.
Okay, so you've got to be asking why. Why go to all this trouble? Why burn all this energy just constantly shuffling ions around? What's the big payoff? Well, it turns out the cell isn't just wasting energy. It's building something incredibly useful, tiny little batteries.
And the end result of all that hard work is something called an electrochemical gradient. I know, that sounds a bit technical, but it's actually pretty simple. Chemical just means there's a difference in the amount of ions. Way more sodium outside, way more potassium inside. And electro? Well, that's about the electrical charge. Since the pump kicks 3 positive charges out, but only brings 2 back in, the inside of the cell ends up being a little bit negative compared to the outside.
And here's the absolute key takeaway. That difference, that imbalance in both chemistry and charge, that is stored energy. It's potential energy. It is, for all intents and purposes, a fully charged battery.
The cell works its tail off to charge up this battery, and then, whenever it needs to get something else done, it can just tap into that power.
Okay, so this is where we connect the dots. Let's zoom way out from these tiny little pumps and see how they are directly responsible for making you, well, you, a living, breathing, thinking person.
Think about it. Every single thought you have, that's your nerve cells cashing in on that sodium-potassium gradient to fire a signal. Every time you move a muscle, that's powered by active transport. Your kidneys, making sure you don't lose essential nutrients, that's active transport. Even your stomach, digesting your last meal, you guessed it, active transport. This stuff isn't some obscure detail in a textbook, it's at the heart of literally everything your body does.
And that's why it's such a big deal when these pumps don't work right. Because they're so fundamental, if they fail, the consequences can be, well, pretty severe. We're talking about serious problems, like life-threatening heart conditions or neurological disorders from nerves that just can't fire properly. They are absolutely non-negotiable for staying healthy.
So let's just land the plane here. As you're listening to my voice, as you're processing all of this, millions upon millions of these little energy-guzzling pumps in your brain are working like crazy. They're furiously building up those gradients just so your neurons can fire. They are quite literally creating the electricity that powers your thoughts. So I have to ask, what are you thinking about right now?